Welcome to the Deeper Awareness Podcast, where we delve into the depths of our inner selves, uncovering authenticity and transformation. Join us for enlightening conversations on breathwork, self-discovery, and the profound journey within. I'm your host, Josh Perry, joined by the delightful Hannah Oxley. Let's begin.
Hey guys, it's Hannah. Have you ever considered yourself a needy person? Well, you should. On today's episode, Josh and I touch upon a handful of human needs ranging from food and water to compassion and trust, and all sorts of shades in between. Stick around because at the end of this episode, I have a short gift of breathwork for all of our listeners. Enjoy. Hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode. I'm excited to dive in because I feel as we are shifting into fall, Josh and I were just discussing the weather, and it's a full moon today too. So I feel a lot of newness, new beginnings emerging. So I'm excited to see what Josh has in store for us today. What sort of subjects are we talking about?
Yeah, this is cool. So, this week I've had a lot of understanding, new awareness, actually. There's a book that is called Nonviolent Communication, and it's written by Marshall Rosenberg. And there's this crazy story about how it came into my life, and maybe that's for another time, but it's really cool.
I do love how books tend to find us at the exact right time. And
it was
sometimes if you force a book, like, oh, I should read this, and it doesn't feel right. And then a few months later, you're like, oh, I forgot about this. And then you read it and it's like, well, this is why it had to wait, because it's always so aligned. I
that's what
used to,
happened.
yeah, it's like the curriculum, like the divine curriculum that comes to us.
Yeah, it came into my life and we set it on the bookshelf, and then all of a sudden it showed up on the coffee table like 5 months later, and it was like, time to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, this book is all about compassionate communication. And so there's the idea that there are universal human needs that we all have. And then there are feelings that indicate whether those needs are met or not. And so if I'm feeling frustration, I can actually look for what need is not being met in this moment. Or if I'm feeling joy, I could also look for what need is being met. So emotions are kind of like the breadcrumbs backwards to find
Mm-hmm.
the needs. And I was looking at these and I was trying to fall asleep last night. And this metaphor
Love the
landed.
metaphors.
Yeah, it landed in me. And so there's, I think, let's see, 7 groupings of needs that the NVC model has. And it's connection, physical well-being, honesty, play, peace, autonomy, and meaning. And then inside of those, there's like a dozen of like sub needs inside of those. And so I was looking at this list and I was looking at coping styles, and I was asking AI, what are a bunch of coping styles? And there are things like denial, projection, rationalization, repression, intellectualization, minimize, withdraw, fantasy, isolating, disassociating, avoiding, humor, sarcasm, acting out, numbing, on and on and on. Like there's a ton of coping coping mechanisms. And I was thinking about this idea of coping mechanisms, meaning we needed to cope with something because there was something going on that we needed to cope with, that it wasn't ideal. And then the other phrase, other than coping, is defense, like defense mechanisms as well, right? And the idea that we needed to defend as a kid indicated there was something going on in our environment that needed defended against, right? So not ideal from a childhood perspective. Very telling that those phrases coping and defense are being used, right? So I was looking at a bunch of these. Really, I was focused on sarcasm because for me, I was very sarcastic as a teenager, like to the point where I perfected it. And so I was looking at this defense mechanism of sarcasm from a place of what needs were trying to be met by me being sarcastic. Because there's a human reason we do the things we do. Instead of just saying, oh, that's my personality. Because once we say that, then we're like, we're done, right? There's no further investigation. But if I say, what's the reason underneath that coping mechanism or behavior, then I started to look at these needs, this list of needs, and I was like, what was I trying to get by being sarcastic? And there was I'm just looking at this list, and there was like a sense of belonging. I felt like if I could be sarcastic and have somebody laugh, then I would somehow in an inauthentic way, I would hook on to that person for a moment, but then I would need to do it again. I would continue to need to be funny. And so the metaphor last night, laying in bed, and I was just thinking about I don't know, if there's 60, let's say there's 64 needs on this list, and they say it's not all inclusive, but here's a pretty good list. And let's say as children, our parents, actually our grandparents, were aware of 6 of these needs. Because honestly, that's probably what they were aware of. And it's not putting them down. It's just that's the culture they grew up in. And so if they had maybe it's less. Let's say it's 3. And let's say grandma had 3, grandpa had 3, and let's say 2 of them are the same. So maybe there's 5 total. Okay. That my dad grew up with this understanding of 5 of these needs being met. And it could be like sleep, food, shelter, water, air. Air's one of them. Okay. So that's kind of 5. Very physical well-being focused. Nothing about connection, nothing about belonging or communication or closeness or creativity or celebration of life or authenticity or integrity or learning or mourning or purpose, right? And so let's say there's this, and I saw like this Crayola,
like the 64 count crayon.
crayons. And there's 64 in this box, but grandma pulled 5 out and said, we don't need the rest of these, set these aside. We just have these 5. Okay. So my parents grew up with these 5 crayons. And then I come along. They only know about 5. Meanwhile, I needed all these things just like they needed all those things. So they developed coping styles when closeness wasn't provided. They needed to create a coping style for that. And so now, as I'm looking at my behavior and I'm looking at what need, if I had that coping style, wouldn't have needed to be developed. I would have just experienced the need itself. And then suddenly I have this new crayon, this, I'm gathering new crayons now. And now I'm hanging out with 16 and I'm like, whoa, 16's pretty nice. I wonder if I can gather and experience 20. And then once I have 20, and I just keep building on, and I get to color life differently. The coloring book of life is different when I only have 5 versus 64 of these crayon needs.
And that's great too, the metaphor for, like, let's say you have all 64, you've done all the work and you know all the needs that you need to be met, but people around you who still only have 5 to 10 crayons, they're like, wow, he's really colorful. I can't see those colors.
Right.
So when we set boundaries and ask for our needs, whether we're setting up or asking to have things come to us, where some people just don't get that. Some people don't understand that.
And not only,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna, when we're talking generational, like you said, like there's nothing wrong with how our grandparents lived their life. They were coming out of the Great Depression, and that's all that they thought they needed. And absolutely, that's, if we were in the same boat, I'm sure we would be the same.
Mm-hmm. And what I was going to say was, not only can they not see the colors, but they may experience emotions when they witness us experiencing these needs. And by those emotions, they can then look at this list and say, oh, why am I feeling jealous or angry? Oh, it's because I need that too. So I like that. It's kind of like a model or an exercise where we talked about last week, going down and sitting with the grief and the sadness and the anger. We can take it one step further. With the grief, it's not just feel it, but it's, what did I need? Why am I grieving? What's missing? What was missing?
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said it might not, like, people think, oh, well, he's just a grumpy person or something, like that's just one of the 7 dwarfs, like he's just grumpy, that's how that person is, for instance. But there's a need not being met, that he's having some sort of grief, that dwarf from Snow White. Grumpy needs a little bit of some sort of need. It's a different crayon in his pencil case.
So with like some of these, I don't even know what it would feel like to experience the need. It feels like I've never had that crayon in my hand before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a long list. Are you able to share your screen for the people that are watching? And then other than that, we can just name some.
Yeah.
Some of these are good. Like you said, like I wouldn't even think about it.
I think what I'll do is when I edit the video, I'll put it like right up here
Perfect.
so that they can see it. And then I'll link to it in the show notes as well.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, read some off that are standing out for you.
Choice, harmony, inclusion, community, to know and be known, to see and be seen, to understand and be understood. Those are huge. Clarity, need for challenge.
Mm.
I feel like that one is not met in our society, and that's why so many people find it easier to numb out, because we're not challenging ourselves in the right way, in a expanding way. Closeness, stability is a good one. Respect and self-respect. And I can see different coping styles. There, with one need, there can be a few different coping styles associated with it, depending on how the person has experienced life. So I find the coping style of being sarcastic very interesting, because I feel like if I rewind and try to think of when's the first time someone said, "Oh, they're being sarcastic," like I was probably gullible to something. I was like, "Wow, that person's being serious." And it's like, "No, Hannah, they're sarcastic." And then so being like, "Well, why would that's confusing?" So, but then going through life, like I'd say 75% of the people I meet are sarcastic.
Mhm.
Everybody gets sarcasm usually at this point, because we're all experiencing that same coping style.
Yeah.
So when you dug into that, did you notice any needs specific to that coping style?
Oh my gosh, I had so much hurt. And what I got really good at was, and I didn't know I was doing it until I started healing. But I would do like a dig to someone's face under the guise of humor. And so it felt like I was using like a dagger or an ice pick to like hurt somebody, but then glaze over it and say, oh, I was just being funny. But it was
Mm-hmm.
hurtful stuff. But it was because I had so much hurt inside of me and I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Then you might see one person makes a joke and a group of people gravitate toward them because they're funny and people like to laugh. So then you're like, oh, well, I could be funny too, so that maybe I can be seen more, be
Yeah.
respected more.
Yeah. And it was crazy because I wanted to be seen, but I also had so many walls up that wouldn't allow myself to be seen. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was these coping styles are like layered protection. And if someone gets past one, if the hurt is big enough that there's going to be another wall.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the first steps are to letting a guard down, letting a wall down like that?
So I've thought a lot about this. And I don't know if it's the first step, but it's a big one, is judgment. And we can hear it in how we judge others. If we're judging others in whatever way, we have to know that that judgment is also inside of us, and there's no compassion there. There's no safety in which somebody could even look within, because as soon as that heart gets open, the judgment's there to hurt it again.
Mm-hmm.
So really paying attention for me is in what ways am I judging others, because I know that that's going on inside me.
Mm-hmm. And I experienced that only because, so when I went on that hike through Spain, we read a book beforehand. It was a group of us, a semester abroad, a whole 10 students. And we had some pre-reading to do. And we read a biography of somebody that did walk this trail beforehand. And one of his big things is he was walking alongside this woman and he just couldn't stand her. And every little hostel he'd stop at, then there she would be, and he'd be so annoyed. And in this case, you're with yourself walking for most of the day, so you have time to think. And he realized that she does things that I hate of myself. And so then I started to become aware of that, especially when I was doing this hike. And I was like, I'm not like that. And then I remember, I forget, somebody I met was bothering me. I was like, well, there's no similarities between me and this person, whatever the instance was. And then I slowly reflecting on it, and it's like, shoot, that's me. I'm judging myself through that person. And so I think it takes some huge awareness in order to be open to that. And there's also this other great book that just came to mind, by Gabby Bernstein. It's called The Judgment Detox. And actually, I think that's what led me to that book, because I was like, wow, I judge other people, and because I judge myself. So it was all about first noticing who you're judging, and then it's the same thing, noticing what those aspects that you hold for yourself too. But the book required a lot of writing, and I quickly gave up.
This sounds like work.
Work that is full of shame, because you realize that, wow, I am so judgy. Yeah, it's a huge realization when you start to notice that in other people. And from that comes so much compassion. But you do have to drop that wall down of like, shit, like I do that. And then as soon as that wall starts to come down, you can have compassion for yourself, and therefore the other person that you saw yourself in.
And I think it's interesting. I just wanted to, what you mentioned about reading the book and then setting it aside as soon as it
Got tricky.
yeah, that I feel like that's part of the journey, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking in all of this information, and it's like, ooh, but it's also another coping style. Like all this awareness, it's like, okay, yeah, I know all about that. I know all about judging,
Mm-hmm.
but it's coming back around for like round two, where and that's kind of where I find myself today. Is for like 6 7 years I was just taking all this information in on how to become aware, but I wouldn't do any of the journaling. A little bit, but I feel like once you get to the place where journaling is okay, that's an indication that there's enough safety inside of you. And to that point, this idea of fixing ourselves, or nobody wants to be fixed. And when I'm doing this work now, it's not to fix me. It's discovering ways that I can love myself differently. That feels so much different than fixing. But I like the way I'm going about it could look very similar to when I was trying to fix myself, because there was a time when that was a focus.
Mm-hmm. Because I saw something recently that once you start on a healing journey, and then sometimes it gets obsessive, and people that suffer from perfectionism, that's another form of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to heal yourself completely and fix yourself completely, but it's never ending. There's always layers and deeper love, deeper compassion for yourself and everybody else.
Yeah, there's a balance there, because perfectionism is a coping mechanism. to keep us from whatever, putting ourselves out there, or and so we want to do the work. That's the up and the down, right? It's the down, go find some healing, and then go up, bring it out into the world, and just allow that to ripple out of you. And then it's like the whole consciousness of the community rises when we do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's, instead of, because I used to be in a place of all these people need to change, and there's so many rude people in the world. And because I used to work retail, that was very in my face, that everyone's too stressed and they all need to take a chill pill and everything. Until when you start focusing on doing work for yourself, suddenly you view that all differently and stop blaming other people for their coping styles, because eventually it's contagious when you're in a high vibration and people are like, how did they get there? Or when you trigger someone, it's a gift for them to be like, wait, like, just to, it's just a little pebble, another little pebble that you're placing that they can follow, or crumb rather. So yeah, doing your work helps everybody else in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Not always a quick fix.
So I want to pivot just a little bit from like this mental understanding to more of a somatic perspective. And so I was revisiting some of Luis Mojica. He's the holistic life navigation guy. So amazing. He has a podcast and Instagram stuff that's just really life-changing. But I was listening to some of he calls them drop-ins. They're like 15-minute audio files that he just has you drop into your body and experience what's going on. And the one I was listening to was around money. And he said, even just mentioning the word money, notice how your body responds. And he calls it might brace. Like brace is kind of is it a freeze? Yeah.
Like brace yourself.
Yeah. And so it could go to like anxiety. And different people had different responses on where it showed up in the body. And so I was thinking about that just the thought of money, my body reacts, right? And so I was thinking about that from some of these needs as well. Specifically around love, I was thinking about, well, and this is the heart guy on Instagram. I told you about his. So he is offering his love and codependency course. It used to be 3,000, now it's for free. And
I watched that first video.
Okay. Yeah. And so I started doing the exercises and it blew me away, the amount of awareness his journaling prompts gave me. And so one of his questions is, how do you view public displays of affection?
Oh yeah.
How do you feel it? What comes up? Are you angry or jealous? And so I was checking in with my body, kind of like the money thing, but it was around somebody showing affection in front of me. And I could feel bracing. It was like uncomfortable. And then I was like, okay, what's going on there? Why is my body uncomfortable around that? And there's like shame there. There's like embarrassment.
I
Uh,
experienced the same thing when I was
okay.
thinking of that question.
Okay.
And I thought about movies and how, like, if there's some sort of like intimate scene on a movie, like I instantly am like, are my parents watching behind me? Like I get that same, so I was feeling into that too. And I was trying to identify, and everything you mentioned, that's what I was feeling too. The
Huh.
shame, the embarrassment, just yeah, embarrassment mostly.
And that's one of the needs on this list, affection. And I have in the past with my partner shown affection in front of people, and you hear the sarcastic comments.
Get
Get
a
a
room.
room. And it's like it's so crazy how it's all intertwined. The sarcasm, the embarrassment, their bodies are reacting, but we don't know that this is going on inside of us.
Hmm.
And if we're feeling shame or not feeling shame, shame is present, but we're not going into it
Hmm.
to release it, it just perpetuates it.
Hmm. And the coping style is that sarcastic remark.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I love how you tied that all together. Yeah.
Well, we could do it with anything. So,
Mhm.
is there some other experience, even not like a negative thing, just like that we could play around with, something at the
Yeah.
farm?
Yeah. Well, actually, my farm peeps are my most supportive listeners.
Okay. Okay.
They're like, we listened to your podcast while we were cutting onions. I'm like, what?
I love that.
Well, so I have an experience that was felt somatically yesterday because I had this amazing massage therapy. And so, yeah, lately for me, it's been my whole life where I push people away when I get really close to somebody. I sometimes think I'm subconsciously pushing them away. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I reflected back to, okay, my first friend that I ever had in like preschool moved out actually to Utah.
Mm.
Maybe she's your neighbor. Um, and then I was thinking of, I've had like so many little groups of friends, or like I remember first grade I had this friend, second grade I had another friend. And I'm like, why was none of that, why didn't a one friendship continue on through a bunch of grades? I have one friend that through different times of our life we've come apart and always come back together. But for the most part, I just don't get that close to people.
Mm.
I'm close, like I have a lot of close friends, but there's still like this like arm's length that I keep away. And I am known to cancel plans, or I rather just be at home in the comfort of my house. And so but then I feel shame about that, because if people are like, well, why aren't, like, what do you mean you're not doing this? What do you mean you're going to cancel? Or why do you want to stay home? Like, so then I feel a little misunderstood, but
Mm.
I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just I must have like some weird social anxiety, some sort of thing. I love to go out with when I want to, when I'm feeling in the mood. It actually kind of goes along with my human design. Karen told me that I'm on this wave. I think we all are, but when I'm on a low wave, I don't want to be around people, and I shouldn't be making decisions, making plans, because it's just not for my design. It's not aligned. So anyway, I was really reflecting on this all weekend, and it just kind of came through to me. I was like, I should reach out to this one woman who, actually, I'd love to have her on the podcast too. She does this, it's called a cranial sacral massage. And she even has a hard time convincing people that it's so well needed for anybody. So what it is, because I think people are you feel very vulnerable. I felt vulnerable a lot of the time, but in a good way. It was like I felt safe around her to be vulnerable. Because what happens is she does a little bit to your massaging your head. It's mostly just like kind of holding your head in certain points, but then she massages your belly like she would like on your back. Like it's there's pressure, and it's very focused just on your belly. And she even specifically said that she prefers working on women but they're the hardest to get to sign up for something like this, because our bellies, in a somatic sense, we're always like, we don't want people touching our bellies. That can be a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's not usually women's favorite part about them. So I even mentioned this to my mom, and she was like, I would never want someone touching my belly. And so I felt that way. I'm holding my belly right now, but I felt that way as she's massaging. Like there's so much vulnerability there, but as you care for it, as you're giving it the attention that it needs, you gain your power back. Like she was able to really talk me through stuff after the massage about, because I just have a hard time saying no to people as a people pleaser, but that's where it gets held in the most, is all those times that we said yes when we meant to say no, or said no and then got a bunch of shame for doing so. We hold all of that in our belly. And so it was really interesting to feel that release somatically and not through my mind. I did not think my way out of that. It was all, I just feel so good since yesterday. It was like a big release. But she was like asking me how I felt. And I was like, I'm having a hard time putting words to this. And she's like, yeah, because it's all on a somatic level.
What was the experience of the release? Like, how did you?
Just today, it was just last night and today, I just felt very light and more in my power.
Okay, so there wasn't like a moment of a whoosh or a.
No, not really. But because I felt the vulnerability come up. And then I was like, I know I feel safe with her. We've done some work in the past. And I was just like, I'm being held by this amazing woman who knows exactly what she's doing. And I just let it all happen. And I think right at that point, there was a big let go of like,
Wow.
okay, she's doing something here. And I've mentioned it on this podcast plenty of times. I have a history of really bad gut issues, and my belly has been very happy for the last 24 hours. It's a really, really cool experience. And I would love to have her on the podcast because she's into all this Tantra stuff. And she just on a whole nother level of just talking, like saying words that make you tense up. Like, wait, what? And I always say, I'm like, I want to learn more, but I need to ease myself into this.
Saying words.
She does. Like she was saying, I was talking about a certain date, and she's like, oh no, I'm going to a tantra tantra party or tantra summit. She's like, we're all going to be naked dancing. I'm like, wow, like I would love to be able to feel that confident and that comfortable in my skin. And so she is so amazing.
Wow.
Really, really enjoy learning from her.
Yeah, that's next level.
Yeah, and because as we do the work, there is that ego that comes in, like we were just talking about. There's no end game, but at certain points we're like, well, I feel perfectly great. But every time I talk to like somebody like her or somebody in that realm of things, I'm like, oh, there's so much more for me to learn, so much more for me to experience. So yeah, it was great experience. A lot to dive in there. So I want to have her on because she is amazing.
Yeah, the freedom is a need.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're describing, she has a level of freedom that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a guard. I guess anytime there's a guard up, there's some reason, right,
Mm-hmm.
inside me that I don't feel free to do that yet.
Mm-hmm. But with all of the deepening of our awareness that we've been doing, it's a yet. It's a that's to come. I will get there.
So
'Cause
she probably has access to the bucket of the crayons that is
she
like,
has the
yeah,
104
yeah.
huge monster pack. Yeah. And you can feel it with like her presence is so like, wow, she gets all of the crayons.
But I'm sure there's another level.
Yeah.
So she has the monster pack, and I'm sure there's another level.
Yeah, she has the glow up markers. Yeah. And we talked a lot because she this is exactly what I mentioned earlier when she has more crayons than we can even fathom yet.
Hmm.
People get that feeling of tension when that if she says something, people are like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
She like clutching their pearls, like, "What?" But when she mentioned that to me, I'm like, "What a gift you're giving to them! What a gift you're giving to those people that whatever you're saying sounds terrifying, but maybe if it's not you that gets to work on them or anything, but you've planted that tiny little seed for the next person that says something that makes them uncomfortable, and then another person, and then maybe by the fifth time they feel uncomfortable, they'll be like, you know what, I'll give that a try.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, she's magical. I feel very blessed to be held in her magic yesterday.
So
She
I
even
was,
wears a she even wears a necklace that's just a woman's body. It's amazing.
huh.
Hmm.
So I was thinking about when I was talking about the five crayons, and
Hmm.
that if somebody that only has five sees somebody else that has access to 32 or 64 or whatever, they feel certain things inside them, feelings or somatically. And it's an indication that there's a need not being met. And then I got to experience that as you were talking about her. That I'm like, ooh, the monster pack. And I can feel like this tightness and this discomfort and this, like, let's change the subject. And it was like, oh, but it actually, there's some freedom there that she's experiencing. And other needs, I'm sure I could look at this list like a level of, like, there's a comfort with her own body.
Hmm.
And there's a level of belonging. Belonging is another one. That those people dancing naked,
Hmm.
that there there's just a level that I don't understand, because right now I'm seeing it from my, I don't know, I have like 16 crayons or something. I'm like, you can't color what she's describing with the crayons I have.
Hmm. It's true. And if you suddenly went from 5 to 104, it would be like, oh my God, what do I do? You probably have a nervous breakdown. So I think the titration of learning a few at a time to get yourself into that, what do
Hmm.
they call it? The monster pack of crayons. That's the way.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Well, and it took courage by you to go to that appointment too, right? Or was it not?
I felt a huge calling to her.
Okay.
Um, but I have a friend who had signed up. I don't even know if she ended up going, but she reached out to me. She was nervous to go. I don't even know if she ended up doing it.
Hmm.
But she's I think she's my mom's age, and she's had a lot. She's gone through a similar health journey that I have, and so our bellies we have trauma there.
Hmm.
And so, however she said she didn't feel comfortable yet. Um, yeah, it takes, it's expanding that package of crayons takes some courage.
So I was on a breath work session yesterday where I was breathing, and this is with Josh Connolly, who's a British guy, and he had close to 200 people in that Zoom call, and he likes to, at the beginning, just ask, "Is this your first time?" And there were, I don't know how many. You see all the first timers, and he's reading them, and he's like, "Whoa, there's a lot of first timers," and so maybe 75% is a guess. There was a lot. And then so he goes over what to expect. Spent like 10 minutes going over what to expect. And I was a little nervous. And I've breathed, hundreds of times, but the way he described it, I was like, whoa, this kind of seems scary. And people were like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm kind of nervous. And because I've been on other calls with him, and he didn't go, none of them. I don't know what it was about yesterday that was just like a little, I don't know. He's like, you might experience this, and your body might twist and turn, and you might end up, crying or yelling, and which is all true, but just the way
Mhm.
he described it. But what I was thinking about, so there was one guy that was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. And I commented on his comment, and I said, you got this. You won't regret it. You'll get through it and you'll love it, and something like that. And because it's like the idea of the safety zone and then the comfort zone. And he was like, am I safe? He didn't know if he was safe. Once he knew he was safe, and he just was uncomfortable, and that's you too. And I'm thinking about like this titration idea that you brought up of what other things can give me access, what other experiences can give me access to other crayons that I didn't even know was a thing.
Mhm.
And instead of immediately rejecting it, just saying, am I safe? I know I'm uncomfortable. I already know I'm wanting to run away, but am I safe?
It's
Will I
two
live
totally
through
different
this?
things. And being uncomfortable and being unsafe, two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think of like the first time I did breath work, same thing. I was felt very called to do it, but was totally scared. Like I'm gonna, and then you could get tingly in this. And the first time I experienced, I had like the whole body tingles. Like my mouth got stuck for a while, and so knowing that, it's like jumping into a pool from like the small diving board, and like you had so much fear to jump off of that small diving board at one point, and jumping off of the taller diving board, you're still safe to do so, but it's scarier because you're higher than you already did what you did before, but you're going to do it.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm sure some people skip and jump all the way from the tall diving board and don't go to the small one. There are people like that, but usually people try out something little, and then they try more, and then more and more. And so I would think, with going to the extreme of dancing around a fire naked would instantly be like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But there's a titration to it. I also didn't think I was gonna, I don't know, quit my job and work at a farm. And there's all these little things that we do that make us more comfortable, more confident to keep doing it and keep exploring and keep experiencing, keep getting new colors in our crayon box.
Well, and I think it's very common when we think about stepping outside of our comfort zone. It's in an outside world, go experience, skydiving or stand up on a stage or whatever it is. It's an activity. But when I'm looking at some of these that are in the like intimacy,
Well, even sexual expression.
yeah, pleasure is on here, self-expression, and some of those are, I mean, that's an inward, like this idea of nurturing or belonging.
Even nurturing makes me scared.
Hmm.
I'm like, that puts a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah, it's interesting the physical reaction that we can have just from a word.
Yeah, that's good. Trust is a huge one. It's like the shortest word on here, but it's the biggest.
Well, and then love is on here, right? And I was doing that homework from the heart guy, and he says we have like a love story.
Yeah.
And for those that haven't done much inner work, you can have a money story, and this is like how money shows up in our life. It's based on whether money is hard to get, or money doesn't grow on trees, or it takes a long time to make money, or money comes and goes. As soon as I make a bunch, I lose it all.
Mm-hmm.
We have a money story. We also have a love story. So I was writing that down. I was astonished at what is inside me when it comes to love and how it has played out in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could probably do one of those awareness exercises for all of these.
Mm-hmm. Your acceptance story, your safety
Mhm.
story, your belonging story.
And when you said that you keep people at arm's distance, it's one of those. It's one of
Mm-hmm.
these stories.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing.
That's what my intention is with um, that call that you sent me, that workshop, the free
Mm.
one. And who knows what I will learn from it, but that's my intention of friendship, love, and why I put up these walls. We will figure it out.
Great discussion.
Yeah, just like I'm going to jump off of the diving board.
Yeah.
So we'll find out.
Do it.
Okay. So to wrap up our episode today, we are going to just do about 2 minutes of breath work as a gift to our listeners. So I'm going to start some music in a minute, but we are going to just do some halo active breaths, which is simply in through the nose and out through the mouth with a little bit of force. So it sounds like this. But before we begin, I invite you to, if you're not driving, shut down your eyes. Find yourself in a comfortable seated position. Just take a few cleansing breaths, allowing you to land here. Just begin to call your energy back from any people or places where it's been. Knowing that you can make that command. You can call your energy back to you. All yours. Feeling yourself filling up and arriving right here in this moment. And when you are ready, we'll begin our halo active breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Here we go. Creating the pace that feels just right for you. Welcoming all parts of you. All parts of this person that you get to be. Couple more breaths here, making them count. Seal the deal. We'll take one deep breath in through the nose and hold your breath at the top. Holding here. Seeing what you're capable of. Feeling that energy that's yours. And only when you're ready, taking a big sigh out, letting go of anything that's not yours. Beautiful job shaking out your hands, rolling your shoulders around, welcoming any stretches that feel good. Letting your eyes flutter open ever so softly, feeling complete. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you for listening to the Deeper Awareness podcast, where the journey of self-discovery and inner growth continues to unfold. We hope this episode has ignited a spark within you and inspired you to embrace a more conscious and authentic existence by looking within. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to explore the transformative power of breathwork and emotional healing. Continue the conversation and stay connected with us on Instagram. Follow at Deeper Awareness Podcast to receive daily inspiration, valuable tips, and updates on our latest episodes and offerings. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights from today's show, so feel free to share them in the comments below or tag us in your posts. Your engagement and feedback mean the world to us as we strive to continue to create content that resonates and empowers our incredible community Together, we can continue exploring the depths of consciousness, fostering genuine connections, and supporting each other on our transformative journeys. This episode is brought to you by You Belong Breathwork, your destination for transformative healing and self-discovery. At You Belong Breathwork, we believe in the power of breath to unlock the deepest parts of ourselves, leading to profound insights and a greater sense of connection and belonging. Whether you're seeking emotional healing, a deeper connection with yourself, or a path to authenticity, our breathwork sessions, retreats, and coaching programs are designed to guide you on this transformative journey. Our experienced facilitators are here to hold space for you as you explore the depths of your consciousness and discover the infinite potential within. Visit youbelongbreathwork.com to explore our offerings and download a free guided breathwork session. Thank you for being a part of our deeper awareness community. Stay connected, stay curious, and may you embrace your true essence with love and compassion. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next episode.